The Bible is full of stories about prophets. Prophets are people who became so close to God and God so close to them that they could hear God's whispers clearly. They would hear and see messages that God wanted his people to know. One of the prophets in the Bible was a man called Isaiah. God gave him messages of hope, but God also gave him some messages that people might not have wanted to hear. Messages that made people stop and think about what they might be doing wrong and how to come close to God again. I wonder if Isaiah felt scared when he had to say those things. There is a beautiful book in the Bible called Psalms. It is full of poems and songs. One of the chapters contains a promise of God's protection. It says that when we put our trust in God, he will cover us with his feathers, and under his wings we can find safety. If you say, "The Lord is my refuge," no harm will overtake you. You will not fear the night, or the arrows that fly in the day. So maybe Isaiah wasn't scared at all. He knew that God and heaven's angels were protecting him. Jesus would often have to tell people hard things that he knew people needed to hear in order for them to get better. There is a story in the book of Mark all about some hard things that Jesus had to say about a temple. The disciples had just left the temple. Struck by how amazing the temple looked, one of the disciples said to Jesus, "Look, Jesus, what massive stones! What a magnificent building!" However, Jesus wasn't impressed with the building. In fact, he said that the whole temple would soon become a whole heap of rubble. You see, in those times, people believed that God lived in the temple in a place called the Holy of Holies. People would travel for miles around just to visit the temple. When Jesus died on the cross, the curtain that separated the Holy of Holies from the people tore from top to bottom. It was like God saying that he just wasn't in one place, but that he was everywhere. A few years after Jesus died, the whole temple was destroyed. Not one stone was left. What Jesus had spoken years earlier came true. In fact, for the first 300 years, Christianity grew and grew and grew without church buildings. People met inside friends' houses instead of inside a church building, and the family of God grew. When Jesus spoke to his disciples on the Mount of Olives, he not only spoke about the temple, but what was going to happen to God's people in the future. He gave them reassurance that God would help them when they needed. It was a promise of supernatural help in times of crisis. When we learn to walk close with God, we can learn to speak his messages with boldness, knowing that God always protects us. So learn to listen, pray, and learn to speak.